This is a follow-up video to removing the lower tape plate. In this machine, we've already removed the lower tape plate. We've cleaned the inside of the machine, and you'll notice that we coated the frames around here. We used POR 15, POR 15, which is a rust-inhibiting paint, and then we covered that with some Rust-Oleum smoke gray. So we wanted to clean it up and make it look a little prettier. And now we're going to install the lower tape plate. The first thing and we're just kind of reversing what we did in the last video. In this video, we're going to install the lower feed wheel first. And we've already cleaned the lower feed wheel with a wire brush and cleaned out the grooves in the lower feed wheel. We also, if you remember from our last video, this feed wheel was a little slow in turning. It was freezing up. So we put some light machine oil into the bearings, and we've got it turning pretty good now. So, the replacement lower tape plate comes with this little spacer. It's an internal tooth washer, and this is important. Put it on the end, the threaded side of the lower feed wheel shaft before you install it into the machine. This will center the lower feed wheel under the new lower tape plate. So you want to make sure you put that spacer washer there. And then you install the lower feed wheel back through the hole in the frame, like that. And then you have to put the threaded nylon nut back on this side of the lower feed wheel shaft, okay? Now we've got the lower feed wheel shaft and the lower feed wheel in position. We want to insert the new lower tape plate. And you'll notice inside the machine there are these little tabs on each side, on each frame. Those tabs go into this part of the lower feed wheel. So we're going to drop the lower tape plate. We're going to drop the lower tape plate in and make sure it's in those tabs. And now we're going to secure the left side of the lower tape plate. So you'll take a 10-32 screw and nut, which comes with the lower feed wheel, with the lower tape plate kit. And, and we're going to put it in here and just thumb tighten this screw to hold this plate in position. So that's all we want to do at this point, okay? So we've secured that side of the lower tape plate, the left side. Now we want to secure the right side of the lower tape plate. What you want to look at is to make sure all the shafts have come through your machine. So you've got the lower feed wheel shaft here. You'll notice it's through the machine. You've got the cutter yoke shaft here coming through the machine. You've got the wooden roller in the back coming through the machine. And that's important so that all the frames fit together. And you've got your stop bar right here that's coming through the frame. So the machine is pretty well together. Sometimes what I'll do is just give it a bang, make sure it's secure. Then using that nail punch again, I'm going to put it in here to line up the holes in the lower tape plate. Then I'm going to take that new retaining clip and drop it through the screw, drop the screw through this first hole right here and screw it in. Whoops, I'm off, hold on. This will take just 1 second to put this screw through. Oops, excuse me. Okay. We put in the two 10-32 screws that hold the lower tape plate in, but we've only thumb tightened the nuts. Now we want to put in the lower shear. To do that, the lower shear, there's 2 brackets inside the machine here, and that's the only thing that holds the lower shear in position. So I'm going to drop the lower shear in, go through the 2 brackets, then I'm going to grab the springs on either side and connect them down onto these 2 stems right here that come out. So I've got to grab these 2 springs, hook them onto these 2 stems, okay? Now you can see we've connected the 2 springs, and now we're ready to install the upper shear. The upper shear, you want to press your lower shear back a little bit. You see it flexes. Press it back a bit and slide the upper shear in like that. Now this is the cutter yoke assembly right here inside the machine. And the screw will go through here with the shear in position, and we're going to screw it in. Now if you'll remember, when we took it out, the lower shear had a pin through it with a retaining ring like that held that shear in position. The problem with putting that back in is it's very, very difficult to push the retaining ring back on because you have very little space right there. So we replace it with a stainless steel 10/32 screw, and it just slides through right there. And then you put the nut on that side, on the left side there. That goes through, and you grab your threaded nut, and you can put it right here on this side to hold the shear in. It's a lot faster than trying to press a retaining ring on the end of that bar. So this screw is a great idea. Saves you lots of time. So now we've got the shears installed. Now also, you don't want to over tighten this nut. There's really no reason to, and it can bind up. So I just put it a little bit more than thumb tight. Now we're ready to install the springs and plates, okay? So we've gone ahead and put the 4 screws into the lower the tank support shelf right here. We've also gone ahead and just slid this pulley system back in here, the pulley rollers, the wood rollers. So they're in. And now we want to install the crank tensioner spring, and that hooks up into the cutter yoke assembly up inside the machine. And there's this little bar that comes out of the cutter yoke assembly. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong spring. And you want to hook that to this. Hook the spring to that little piece right there. And I'm going to do it, but it's a little hard to even for me to show you on camera. You just got to fish around and kind of grab it right there. Then you pull the crank tensioner spring over one of the wooden rollers and hook it temporarily into the first slot in the tape basket area. This is probably not going to work in long term. You've got to move it when you're done down to at least the second position to get enough tension on the crank on the lower feed wheel. The next spring we want to install is the handle return spring. And this is a common question everybody calls us with. How do I do that? Where do I hook it to? Well, this is the crankshaft inside the machine. And you'll notice that the cam has a hole in it. And the spring has to hook into that hole. Like so. So what you want to do is you push your handle all the way back. And again, it's hard to see me doing it on camera. But you fish around and you'll find that hole, and then you're going to bring this spring underneath the wood pulley and up into the tank of the lower front cover, which I'm going to put on right now, okay? Now we put the lower front cover on. We've taken our handle return spring, we've hooked it to the cam there. We've brought it around the wood pulley, and we've hooked it into the second slot in the lower front cover, and we're ready to flip the machine over. And there's only a few more parts we have to install. If you remember, we took out the separator guide, and these can be installed backwards, and I've done it. But you want the lower part, the lowest part of the separator guide tab facing backwards towards the machine, because they have to slide in to the slots in the back of the tape basket area. These slots back here, they have to slide in. So you install this. If your machine uses this separator guide, just drop it in. Okay, and then we're going to screw it in. But we're going to leave it loose. We're not going to tighten the screws right now, okay? Okay. Now we've put in the separator plate here, but we've left the screws loose because we have to still spread the frame just a little bit to get the front cover on. Also, check the wood roller. Make sure that's going through the frame. And if that's okay, then we're going to go ahead and install the new pivot rods. There's 2 pivot rods. One pivot rod, and by the way, take a look at those pivot rods, and you'll see they've got a cutout in them. That cutout is always going to be on the right side of the machine. So you take one of your pivot rods and slide it through, and it goes through here. We'll push that in a little bit more later in just a second. Then we take the second pivot rod, and we want to push that in. Now, if you remember in the first video, we took out the shear rollers. And I've taken the time, see, this was the original shear roller, and it's got some crud on it. And so I took the time to polish one, and this is what it looks like when it's polished. So you want to polish these before you put them back in. And I polish using just the 1/4-inch drill and a wire brush, something like this. It's going to make a little bit of noise, but take a look. I just to knock off some of the crud. You want these rollers to be freewheeling, okay? Well, we've gone ahead and cleaned both of the shear rollers off, and we've slid the new pivot rods through. And you remember the old pivot rods had a retaining clip. Had a retaining ring, and we're changing over to the new style, which is the retaining clip. And the reason you put the two cutouts on this side is so that you can tap this clip down, and that holds the rods in position so they don't come out of your machine. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now, okay? So we've gone ahead and tightened now both of these 10/32 screws. We've got our tape weight assembly back in. And the last difficult thing, if you want to call it difficult, is putting in the upper feed wheel shaft and pinion gear. And what you do is you take your large spacer washer that came off the shaft, you line it up to the bushing here, and then slide your shaft through that. Now, when we took the machine apart, the shaft was held in by this C-clip right here. We don't like to use these. I like to use this stainless steel collar to hold the shaft. It's a little more flexible. I just like it. What I do is I use a little lithium grease. I put it on a new thin washer. And all this comes with the kit. Then I put a little bit of lithium grease on the inside of this locking stainless steel collar. Then I grab my feed wheel and I slide it over, slide it through the other bushing on the other side. Now I'm ready to lock the collar down and the upper feed wheel down. Okay, but I don't tighten this collar, push it way hard against this bushing over here. I want to leave it a little loose so there's a little bit of play in the shaft, just a little bit. So it makes the handle easier to pull. Okay? So now we've gone ahead, we've centered the lower feed wheel, the upper feed wheel over the lower feed wheel. We've tightened both of the set screws here, 3/32 set screws. We've tightened our collar down, just leaving a little bit of play in it. Not much, just enough. Now we have to go ahead and put the front cover on. In this case, in this model, it just snaps in like this. And we're going to use a screwdriver to snap it together. Whoops. Snap it together. Okay. Now don't forget, once you put your front cover in, you have to go ahead and tighten down the 4 screws, the 1/4 20 screws that hold the separator guide. So you got to tighten those down. And now you're pretty much done. Well, you're almost done. Okay. Well, we've gone ahead and installed the front cover. We've tightened the 4 1/4 20 screws down. And the last thing I remember we put this spring in the first hole just kind of as a placeholder there. It really won't have enough tension to pull the tape through if you only put it into the first hole. So what I do is I'll turn the machine over, grab the spring out of the first hole, and I'd like to move it back to the second hole right here. That's where I think it's the best. Now you can see though, you can go to the third hole. Nobody's ever gone to the fourth, but you could go to the third if you still don't have enough tension. The only way to know is to put tape in the machine and pull the handle. If your tape is still slipping or you're not getting the correct lengths, then you might want to go to the third hole. But for right now, let's keep it on the second hole. That's the optimum position. And really, we're done with the machine except to put the key drum cover back on. But everything is ready. And you're ready to go. Of course, you want to put your upper tape plate back in. Don't forget that. And now you've got a plate that's going to last almost forever. Longer than it matters. I mean, it's going to last a lifetime. And you're done. And thanks for watching. One thing I wanted to mention in our video at the end is that we do provide a complete rebuild kit for the 333 that includes all of the parts you see here that really, I think I can say will make your machine better than new. It's about $170. It includes not only the stainless steel lower tape plate, it includes the new springs, the crank and handle return spring, the new shear kit with the new shear kit screw. It includes new moistening brushes, and this is a triple set of moistening brushes that we include with the machine. It also includes something I really like, which is the new style upper feed wheel shaft and all the hardware. So you can get the neoprene feed wheel, which comes with the kit. It also includes, of course, the new pivot rods, the new retaining clip, the long screw right here for your lower front cover, and all the fasteners you're going to need in stainless steel to replace every fastener on the machine. So the kit for $170, you can take your old machine and make it really, I think, better than new. It's available from tigerseal.com. If you have any questions, just check out the links. Check out our stuff in the links below. Thanks.